Good afternoon once again, and welcome back to the fifth masterclass of the day. We are grateful to the forum's social partner, Samruk Kazina Trust Social Development Foundation, for supporting the masterclasses. Once again, please remember that we will have questions at the end of this masterclass, and you can ask questions from the audience, and you can also ask questions online in the chat room. We look forward to those. Thank you. The next masterclass is going to be delivered by Sergey Stanovkin. Sergey is a media consultant with over 20 years of running international PR agency, consulting national and international TV broadcasters, advising national and regional governments, as well as private and state-owned companies on media, government, and investor relations. He was appointed head of Commercial Representative Office of BBC World News in Russia in January 2006. In 2012, he was appointed head of BBC Commercial Representatives of BBC Worldwide in all of the Eurasian countries. And in 2015, Iran was added to this list. As an expert on international media, he is organizing training courses, strategic communications, twice a year all over the globe. Please join me in welcoming Sergey to deliver this next masterclass called Media Audience, Formats of Interaction. Thank you, Sergey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for nice words. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you. I thank the organizers for inviting me, and I thank the organizers of the Eurasian Media Forum for actually deciding to hold this forum despite the pandemic. And the time is changing and the formats are changing, certainly. Today's topic is the formats of interaction for the mass media. The audience and formats of interaction. It was interesting to note that the previous speakers who organized the masterclass talked a lot about the audience, and that is very important because bloggers, mass media, the forum itself is working for its audience. We are all working for our audience. We are trying to get as much people in our audience as possible. We try to make sure that our audience follows our interests and values. And if we are not serving this audience, then someone else will. If we are not holding the forum, if I were to put myself in the organizer's shoes, then other people will hold the forum. Maybe not here, but like recently in Astrakhan, there was a media forum organized for Russia just about a couple of weeks ago. So, this topic is very important, and it's also important for the following reasons. Often, mass media are perceived as a PR instrument. Yes, and it can be used for PR purposes, for public relations, but mass media have their own objectives as well, and often the mass media achieve these objectives in various ways, or they might not achieve them. In the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned the audience, and the question is, do you have the right audience, and is the mass media able to achieve their goals? And maybe that's why we see some mass media being created and then they disappear. Or sometimes some outlet will be created, but then it changes, not only from the standpoint of the design, but also content. When your content changes, the audience will change. If TV used to be the main source of information in the past, now the internet has its impact. But during Trump era, we said that Twitter became more important. But could Twitter become so important if the US TV channels and global TV channels would not broadcast the tweets in their broadcasting schedule. Have you ever thought how many people actually read those tweets and how many saw them in other media outlets? So there is a big question of how different media work together and what is the impact of an individual outlet in this picture. Why are we concerned about certain topics, but then we are told about something else? And have you thought how important it is for a media outlet to actually draw your attention to the topic that they want to share with you? And I'll talk about brands, although when we talk about mass media, we don't often use the brand concept, but I will still use it. And I think that this brand is this image, this visual of the mass media, and not necessarily the brand of today. We should be thinking about the brand of the future, of what this media outlet wants to be in the future and how they want to be perceived. But often the real perception is different from what the media is trying to achieve. And in my slides, I tried to come up with some short phrases that would describe my slides, or some great sayings by big speakers. And for instance, Schiller said that set bigger goals because it's easier to aim at the bigger thing. So the scale of the tasks that you are trying to achieve will help in positioning the media outlet. So let me mention just a few aspects. In terms of quickness of information, you need to think whether you're able to speak about some events happening in a timely manner. Are you talking about something that is upcoming or something that has already happened? And is the audience interested in what you are going to say? Because often people are trying to look into the future. They are trying to see what happens to them in the future, although the historians talk about the past. But still, timeliness of information is very important. And I think that the mass media often act as followers of different organizers, only talking about what has already happened, whereas the audience is interested in what's going to happen. Second thing is the reliability of information. And sometimes it seems that if you're talking to someone who participated in a specific event, people would know that they tell the truth. But the audience is often not interested in individual person. They're interested in the event itself. So if you watch TV, if you read newspapers, how often do you see that information is presented in a comparative manner? If you read business news, will the performance indicators of one company be compared to another company? Or if you're talking about some regional situations, is there a comparison between the regions or between the countries? Or if you're reading about a sector, will there be a comparison to another sector? And again, there is a question of reliability and trust. If people don't trust some media outlet, they'll switch the channel, they'll go online, but the very important thing here is reliability of information. It's not only about whether you're telling the truth or not, it's also about whether the audience trusts you. Then the next thing is quality of information. Certainly it's difficult to describe quality. People think of quality differently. It could be quick presentation, relevance for the audience. If you're interested, let's say, in the news, why would you watch entertainment shows in the morning? So maybe the entertainment show that you have scheduled for the morning is good, but in the morning people might not be interested in that thing. They might be interested in the weather forecast. There might be interesting about the traffic situation. They are interested if it's going to rain or not. Again, if you look at the events, imagine, is it very easy for you to find out what's happening in your city when you wake up? Are you interested in that? And are you able to find that information? So we are talking about meeting the expectations of the audience. And if the media outlet does not meet those expectations, then those TV channels, newspapers will lose their audience or will have an audience different from their goals.
Do you cover the topic regularly, only when you are told to, or advised to do so, or after the others do so? No regularity means that the topic shall be a random one and shall be perceived randomly. If it's a random topic, then the reaction shall not be stable and you shall not have loyal, permanent audience. If we're talking about mass media, if you don't have the audience as a mass media, you have nothing to offer to sponsors and advertisers. Basically, your life is turning quite dull and mediocre. Why? Because you have lost your topic, and you raise the topic only when your sponsor finds it interesting. Segmenting of your audience. How do you segment your audience? By age, by income, by education, by interest, by lifestyle. There are a lot of indicators against which you can segment your audience. And how does the audience know how you orient yourselves? Have you told them? For example, to me, advertisement is a wonderful instrument to learn about mass media. Through advertisement, I will know what kind of mass media I'm dealing with. That might be a business newspaper or something for housewives. For example, do they have corporate brands in their advertisement? Maybe information about some upcoming industry events, etc., etc. Based on that, I will know the nature of mass media. Segmenting of audience is of utmost importance to retain your audience and to once you segment your audience, you must know how you segment your audience. When they say that a journalist is a wonderful PR specialist, I disagree. I've been dealing with communications for more than 20 years. A good journalist is the one who has his and her own standpoint, an independent individual. And for many years, it takes many years to have a good journalist. A good PR specialist is a flexible person knowing the wishes of the audience. Do you know a lot of good journalists who are ready to follow the preferences of the audience? I do not know such journalists, because being a good journalist doesn't mean being a good PR specialist. And later we will talk more about the difference between journalism and PR. So what your mass media wants to communicate to the audience is the core of your advertisement. And what the audience wants to know about mass media is the PR. And that pertains to the corporate brand, to the national brand, and the regional brand. If, for example, a fire takes place, then we will say we have bad harvest. So everybody is interested in the bad news. So another important element is the proper selection of the communication format. Communication format may vary from newspaper to newspaper. Even one radio station may have several such formats. But please do not forget that each media platform has its own peculiarities, its own audience, and in this case, quite illustrative is a situation that happened several years ago. The mayor of one of the cities decided to choose some bloggers. It was in Kazakhstan. So, at the exterior, it seemed that the meeting was not a success. Why? Because they mixed up several platforms together. Basically, people who live in the online regime were invited to the offline platform. to television and radio station. Internet, bloggers, they have their own audience and own instruments of distribution of information. That is why when you choose formats, please do not forget that various facts may be conveyed by means of various formats. So let's talk about information field itself. Information field, this is not that is surrounding you. That is something where you position yourselves. And I'm talking about mass media, television channel, even regional, even urban television channel can and must report about global events that are of interest to the region and the city. If there is a certain industry in a region, then of course you must demonstrate news about similar industries in other parts of the world. So why is the mass media scale limit the scale of life philosophy of the audience? And the last moment I wanted to talk about is the coordination of events taking place in the global scale, regional and local scale. And the last word I have here is stereotype. But meanwhile, I want to talk about the importance of the target groups. Target groups. Mass media have a lot of target groups in reality, and those are not just advertisers, customers, sponsors, whatever you call them. Those are also analytical people, expert community, people supposed to receive interesting information in the format they are accustomed to. That is why any PR division of any mass media must know how to pack the information into various formats, not just press releases, but some other formats. Very often, how often do you provide information about events? Who are those messages targeted for? Is it regular mass media or some other audience? So, you live together with your audience, you get used to your audience, you basically want to bring up your audience. As for myself, Seneca said something very correct. If the ship does not know which harbor is the destination, then no wind shall be of assistance. If you do not know who your message is designed for, maybe it's a news agency, maybe it's a governmental body, when you don't know the final destination, the final recipient of your information, then your press release shall have no effect. There are some other elements for the successful positioning of mass media. And everything depends on your communications and interaction with the audience. What are the success factors, priority topics? How do you select priority topics? You must consult your audience. Basically, you must have an editorial plan. Even each beginning blogger must have an editorial plan, or a mass media must have an editorial plan as well as the plan of information triggers. This is the list of not only events, but events at the disposal of not only your editorial board, but events that might be interesting to your target audience, something target audience wants to know or is supposed to want to know. So this is the informational trigger. Contents that are relevant to your target audience and the team of speakers. That's quite an interesting moment. Sometimes you may think that a TV anchor is a wonderful speaker, but that is not true always, because speaker is not only a person who reproduces a text or knows how to discuss a topic. Speaker is a person who is ready to generate interesting content, interesting topics for public discussions. That is why selecting a group of speakers is not just selecting a group of eloquent people. Those must be people who generate interest from the audience and know how to deal with the audience. Commercial success and independence. It might appear that those are the two things that are interconnected. But successful mass media, many mass media work under conditions when you do not have advertisement. For example, you're a governmental newspaper and you live without commercials. As to commercial success, it may be substituted by the demand of your content. If you have a good organization, a good mass media, and you collect requisitions for advertisement, you can measure your success in money. Advertisement time you are selling, how more expensive your advertisement time is compared to your competitors. For a television channel, things are quite easy. Before pandemic, I used to travel a lot of countries. I love to watch local television stations, and I always pay attention to commercials and advertisement on television because it helps to understand from advertisement what a television channel is about and what it is for. And not to be biased against Mr. Bernard Shaw, he said, try to get what you love, otherwise you will get what you get, but not things that you love. And that has to do with commercial success. It's quite a big and interesting topic. Far more interesting is the issue of stereotypes. For many years, for 30 years, I've been living in UK. Every time I'm a Russian citizen, I come to Russia, Kazakhstan, and people perceive me as a local one, as a natural one born in the Soviet times, someone who has the mentality of a Soviet citizen. But at the same time, I know how powerful stereotypes might be, particularly in the post-Soviet people. Particularly stereotypes, what you think about what others think about you. You can use it in your life for your own success. Yes, there are stereotypes about Kazakhstan, about mass media in Kazakhstan. Those are stereotypes, but the way you assess and evaluate those stereotypes, how correct you are about those stereotypes, that is another important thing. So basically, I'm not talking about pink glasses. I'm just talking about sober-minded approach to such a thing as stereotypes. Stereotypes may be generated by social medium, by previous experience, and a number of other factors. But I am happy to acknowledge that stereotypes are changing. For example, my stereotypes are changing and transforming. A wise person changes its opinion, whilst a stupid person never changes its opinion. This is a UK proverb. I want to refer to another interesting thing, that's the national branding. Why? Because the national branding, to my mind and the mind of the other people, influences everything, almost everything. The success of your mass media. Please pay attention to Kazakhstan. You do advertise consumer goods, but what about corporate advertisement? That is the corporate advertisement of international companies. How do international companies perceive Kazakhstan and Kazakh mass media? A lot of things depend on that. It's not a big secret that a powerful national brand helps companies and mass media resolve their own business problems. For example, attracting investors, attracting sponsors, implementing projects. Kazakhstan takes a not bad place, actually, if to talk about the national branding, and shows a good dynamic picture 10 points increase in the last year in the Future Brand Country Index from 59 to 49th place. So what did I want to tell you? What is a brand? Brand is an image that is inclusive of various elements and components. It's like a mosaic picture. A lot of research has been done into what the national brand is, and everybody agrees about the elements of the national brand. On the right side of my table, you can see the word experience. The perception, the feeling that you acquire in the course of communication or in course of engaging a country. You might know the export product of a country, or you can avail yourself of an export product from that country. You visited that country as a tourist. You're aware about the cultural legacy of that country. So what is the Kazakh unique experience? This is the national branding. And likewise about mass media, the audience. Where is the overlapping point between the audience and the television channel? For example, a certain segment of audience does not watch my television company. How can I attract those people? And the same goes about internet portal. Internet is far more complicated mechanism than television, considering its magnitude, size, how many individuals browse one picture, one page in 1 second, tens of millions of people. In 1 second, if you take one specific page, how many people do you have browsing there? In television, statistics are quite different, less compressed, less impressive, not of that magnitude. So can you imagine the power of the impact from internet compared to the power of the impact from television? So enough about experience, and a couple of examples I wanted to show to you. Japan. What is the closest association with Japan? Japan, what is it? Japan electronics, some special industries, and likewise Norway. Norway is energy, Norway is logistics, Norway is about finance. Germany. What is Germany? That is machines building, that is transportation, etc., etc. If we are talking about a car, we're talking about Mercedes, first of all, and likewise with Japan. Now, if we are talking about some concrete, specific mass media, what do we think about that mass media? What is our impression? And who is us? The audience may vary. And I wanted to show this slide to you deliberately because information comes in the eyes of adults and younger generations, and the perception is different. For example, younger generation is more active with smartphones. That is why it is easier to catch their attention. How about football matches or classical music concerts for the youngsters, Grammy Awards? How do you hook up their attention? By means of smartphones or television? You see? And through those gadgets, by means of those gadgets, you can establish the feedback and reciprocal communication with the youngsters. So the young people, likewise the other groups of audiences, also fall victims of communication technologies. So in general, what did I want to tell us? It's been some time since PR or positioning of the brand or the presentation of the company or the country was about providing information. Unfortunately, until today, a lot of people, including adults like myself, use the term informational work. They do not know about us. Let us give them information. People are not prepared to talk to us because they have no information about us. etc., etc. So today, people got problems formatting and presenting the information. For example, if you ask an industrial manager to prepare information about his plan, he will make something solid and on many pages. Can you make a video about your plant that would last only 30 minutes and it would catch your attention? The thing is, the audience perceives any content not only from the standpoint of information, but from the standpoint of trust. For example, take a look at the statistics for the leading 4 television channels from the standpoint of trust, from the standpoint of influence, etc., etc. So various mass media have various magnitudes of influence on the audience. So how do you earn the trust from the audience? How you can become a more powerful mass media? And another moment interesting to me, it helps me in my work, Bloomberg, a couple of words about Bloomberg. From the standpoint of trust, Bloomberg is in the last place. This is a financial television channel and enjoys no trust. Why? Because Bloomberg has to talk about financial forecasts. Very rarely do those forecasts come true. That is why Bloomberg has a poor reputation as a television station that is pulling your leg. You call it forecast, I call it some other word. And that's one moment. You make a review. So, in other words, everything depends on the packing, on the exterior outlooks of the information. Now let's talk about the reaction. What kind of reaction your information causes. The information must be topical, the information must be timely. And I put this slide in my presentation purposefully. Very often, big PR services in big companies, they do not distribute information. They constrain the information. They limit the context between the audience and the sources of information. So these are the proverbs that were used in the past. And today my position is that mass media must talk a lot about themselves. They must promote themselves. And you must explain to the exterior world what your mission is, why you are doing that. You must be predictable. You must be interesting. You must agitate people's interest to your future products. And of course, the last thing, if you know a lot, you will grow wiser sooner. This is a very good proverb. Basically, if you know a lot, you live happier. Now let's talk about the news that have no scenarios. Why am I talking about that? Just to highlight how important it is to have an editorial plan. You must have a plan of your future publications. Of course, some unexpected things happen. They become breaking news. And they can mess up your whole work algorithm. But please pay attention how differently various television companies act. For some of them, an unexpected event is an opportunity to spend a whole day reporting about that event. And they are ready to discuss those events on the next day. Other television channels that have editorial plans and have proper segmentation of the audience.
Those will continue doing so that they will have different sections, not only on the TV channel, but in the newspapers, on the website. You can segment the audience in this way. The audience won't stay with you throughout the whole time, but the audience must be with you when it's the most interesting moment for the audience. There is also one more thing about the role of mass media. Many people are saying that the mass media becomes more and more influential, and many countries try to limit somehow the impact of the mass media on the population. Other countries try to use them. I've been listening very attentively to the speeches delivered by the president of Kazakhstan, and a couple of months ago, he said that there should be more advertising or promotion of vaccination. And I'm actually in favor of that. But, you know, the advertisement can be good or bad, high quality and low quality. And many outlets, newspapers, TV channels are not really used to the format of advertisement. It's about being creative, it's about being responsible, it's about good advertisement. Whereas for the some segments, they don't treat it as such. Again, for the advertisement, you need to repeat it several times a day so that people recognize it, so people will have some stereotypes about it. So the advertisement can help you in many things, but it's expensive and difficult to produce. And instead of creating good advertisement, you get just some news pieces when people are saying, I'm vaccinated and you should do so. But do people really think if they're choosing good role models for vaccination? Is that really a person who will serve as a role model? Will others follow him? Or was that just an accidental person who is not a real role model? So for the advertisement, you'll need to ensure quality for every second, whereas for news pieces, you don't treat them to the same standard. And that can create mixed feelings or even resentment. So I think that the role of mass media right now is very high. And I started talking about the pandemic by no accident, because this is something that we need to overcome, to fight, and I'm trying to just focus their attention on that. Just a short video on when the Queen opened the new BBC Centre. That was in June 2019. So technically, it was opened during the Olympic Games in London in 2012, and I was lucky enough to receive many guests there. But the official opening ceremony was in 2013. Sorry, I will show you the video, and then you'll understand.
The Queen will be
По большому счету, это прямая трансляция.
So this is live.
BBC в новостях рассказывает
BBC on the news is basically talking about the Queen's visit to this TV center. They've got a studio there with transparent glass walls, and the Queen is coming there. So see, she's coming there.
To the heart of BBC Broadcasting House and our live newsroom.
Yes, it's a view that we share with our audience every day, but today a unique moment with a very special royal guest.
So what's unique about it? For the first time, you see the TV anchors facing their backs to the cameras, and they still continue this live broadcast.
That is one of the most bizarre bits of television that the BBC has produced for some time. As the Queen makes her way past the BBC News Channel studio.
Одним словом.
To summarize it all, you know, life is great. It's important to demonstrate all aspects of life, and people will make different decisions. And the director of this broadcast made this decision, and it was actually for the first time in history when both TV anchors face their backs to the camera. So what I'm leading to is that the fittest will survive, and that's true for the mass media as well. So we are not saying that the radio is dead or TV is dead when the internet arrived. No, they're changing. Yes, some TV channels died off. Yes, the internet is here, but it doesn't mean that one is replacing the other. That is the most important point. I've already mentioned trust, but we could look at trust differently. This could be trust domestically. And I'm mentioning BBC here because I personally think that this is the best media brand of the world. Well, in terms of trust, at least, people think that BBC is number one in terms of trust. But in Germany, for instance, the situation is a bit different. The media brands have different positions. The leader is the same, but let's look at Europe overall, because that's different audience, different situation. The reason why I'm saying that is that if you have identified the target audience in certain region, you need to focus on that region. If you're focusing on the national audience, you need to remember the national audience. But there is also another aspect. Is your audience coming from the younger generation or older generation? Millennials are very important for each brand, and that's a separate study. And certainly the audience profile. I don't have much time. I just wanted to leave some time for the questions. If there are no questions from the audience, then I will ask a question of myself, because I often, talk to myself. So you can segment your audience yourselves based on those parameters that you consider important. This could be income levels, education levels. This could be lifestyle, traveling, whether they travel domestically or internationally. And since we're talking about the role of the mass media, so far I haven't seen articles in Kazakhstan related to tourism. Tourism is a very important sector for me. Why? Because in my opinion, tourism is the face of the country. And so tourism is largely responsible for investment attractiveness of the country as well. See, many countries are actually using tourism advertisement, and they are promoting investment through that as well. But there is also another thing. What's the difference between the international tourism or domestic tourism? What's the difference? It's the question of what you're focusing on. If it's that international travelers, then this will be an additional source of income for the country, whereas the domestic tourism is just redistribution. So you are either developing your economy or just redistributing flows. This is also a topic for the mass media, which could have a positive effect on the country. So now let us talk about the different audiences. In studying the audience, it's very difficult to study your audience on the one hand. There are some current studies, but I want the mass media to be creative. Many years ago, BBC came up with this study and methodology, and they conducted an independent study. An independent company conducted the study. So what they did was they placed this Chanel type of dress on various portals: tourism portal, travel gazette, Yahoo, and BBC. I don't know if you still remember Yahoo. That used to be a very popular portal back in the day. So the idea was that the BBC audience could value the same black dress, little black dress, with various amounts of money. So, for instance, women offered over €1,000 for the same dress on BBC portal compared to other portals. What does this give you? It gives you that your audience is maybe affluent, or they're ready to pay more money, and so on. This is very important for advertisers, for sponsors, for those who work with the mass media. What kind of study will you come up with? It depends on your creativity. Just don't tell me that it's too difficult to analyze. If you want to analyze your audience, you will do so. Look at what other people are doing and do even better. We've already discussed advertisement and PR and the differences between the two, so don't confuse the two concepts. I don't really like when people are, or especially mass media, is confusing the two, because it's either about what you want to say or what people know about you. If you're spending money and time on advertisement, but it's low quality, no one will be watching it. Just remember how many ad campaigns are impossible to find, as if they never existed, because they weren't good, although the budgets were spent. And just a couple of slides about the format. This is an old video. It was filmed in 2009, I think, when the UK Parliament made a decision that advertisement can actually be placed on BBC.com. And at the time, there was a video that was promoting the advertisement portal. And then many TV channels of the world used similar ideas and even similar musical background to place it on their own channels. So just watch it.
The BBC News website, updated every minute.
So, see, they weren't talking about how many countries they were covering with their journalists and so on, but they were showing that they're close to their audience, and that's the visual, the image that will stay with you. There are many new outlets, channels, portals, okay, but what should the outlets do that only focus on one topic, on one area? What can they do to make themselves interesting? That is the last video that I'll show before the Q&A. I just wanted to show you this BBC Earth presentation when it was created. That was a while back, but I think that you'll like it.
Yours. It's in your backyard, your lunchbox, your journey to work. It's in your racing mind, your pounding heart, your dropping jaw. It's in your wildest dreams, your biggest fears, your grandest ideas. Earth is the land beneath your feet. The air that you breathe. It's the struggle to survive, the conditions to thrive. Welcome to BBC Earth. Now online at bbc.com, where you can experience something amazing every day. In a world of endless wonder, no one gets you closer to the thrill of being alive. Be inspired. Be here. BBC Earth. Unmissable.
So see, that was an invitation for another TV channel, for another media outlet, and it's not difficult to create those, so do that. The reason why I've demonstrated this video was that this also relates to a very urgent topic of the day, which is the climate change, and we're all talking about it, but all talking about it in a different manner. And the mass media is also responsible for framing this discussion. Either we are talking about continuous transformation, about being prepared, about readiness, or are we talking about some specific things? So if it's about the transformation concept, you could discuss how many years it took to do that, or what happened before that, but it's about call to action, not just talking about it. And although this agenda is very important, I see that many mass media are still living in the old mindset. If the priority is oil and gas, and the country might think that this is a priority, like countries like Kazakhstan that have good oil fields, they need to explore them, they want to produce them. But then the international investors have already made a decision that there are these dirty stocks, that these are not clean, and the world is changing, and you need to change with it. And the mass media will play an important role. You need to organize special projects. It's about being creative. I want to talk about it. I started a bit late, but I want to finish on time. So these are the projects that we implemented. You can do the same. For instance, there was a project of Russia Business Report, an annual cycle of business programs. This is also our country direct idea. And back in the day, we came up with this concept for Kazakhstan in 2011. And according to this concept, there were 4 shows filmed in a specific country on a specific topic, and this is a lot of content. We were not able to implement this project with Kazakhstan, but this was implemented with the Ukraine, for instance, in 2012, and then many countries like Germany, Japan, Taiwan, and many others participated in the project. So for good creative projects, many people will be ready to repeat it, and that's what I am urging you to do. Use content. Life gives you opportunities to position Astana as a technological country of the world, like they did in 2017, or as a country who received a lot of tourists, including international travelers, and good for domestic tourism as well. So basically, the mass media can frame these information fields, and they can position any kind of event in a different manner. If you were to position that, let's say, as a technological global event, then of course you would talk about technology technologies, so technologies of the future that came to Astana. If you're positioning it in a different manner, you could talk about people, or you can talk about how many countries were represented here, how many people came. But no one really will be moved by just these pure numbers. So what happened? The technology topic was replaced by the tourism topic. Well, what's most important, just a couple of minutes, I think that we need to focus more on the questions and answers. If there are questions, I'll focus on those. If there are no questions, then we'll see. Please. Hi, thank you very much for your speech. My question is, in Kazakhstan, there are mass media that don't even position themselves as mass media anymore. They're rather positioning themselves as digital companies, and maybe they're not following the journalism standards in a strict manner, but they're popular among the audience. They need they use promotional tools. On the other hand, there are other more conventional mass media. They do journalism investigations, they do fact-checking, they talk about social topics, but they're not as popular. And I think that the distrust is born because many people see the products or the news that did not go through the fact-checking, and the true journalists are very sad about it when people don't read their pieces. But on the other hand, there is the low-quality content that is being promoted. What do you think we should do with that situation? And can we actually create a media outlet that would combine the two? You know, my answer will be very simple. There is production and there is promotion, and these are two different things. If you're talking about good mass media that do the production well, if they do investigations and so on, this is production. But what they are lacking is promotion. And then certainly no one will know about them. But promotion, it's not only about advertising. If they talk about the way they conducted these investigations, what these investigations led to, this is a completely different direction. This could be different formats. It's not about shooting a 30-second video to promote yourself, but it's also about identifying your audience well. If you have older audience, you will use one format. If you have younger audience, you'll use completely different format and different platforms for promotion. If people don't know about this media outlet, they need to use some platforms and promote themselves. And that's what is often lacking. Just take a look. Are there many TV channels in Kazakhstan that are promoting themselves? Do channels actually shoot videos about themselves? Or have you seen newspapers that actually are promoting themselves? This wasn't part of the Soviet DNA, and everyone thought that, oh, good products don't need advertisement. But then international specialists come and they come to us and they say that, oh, advertisement is more like propaganda. So you need to look into it. If you are facing competition, you need to find an answer for yourselves. The answer is simple. We have received one question online, and the question is as follows. In your opinion, what is the social advertisement about? There is still no clear definition of a social advertisement in international practice. What do you think is an effective social advertising? You know, there are some questions that are in demand by the society, and there are priority matters, and attracting attention to these priority matters is exactly a social advertisement. Because, you know, people are leading their own lives, and in their daily routine, it seems as if something is happening on its own. So, like, well, let's say some educated people consider vaccination a natural thing, and they think that everyone else thinks the same. But then they start talking to their parents, let's say, and the parents don't want to vaccinate themselves, although their friends might be dying, their relatives might be dying. Then everyone becomes shocked, and then they start start thinking about it, that's when they need social advertisement. And advertisement is a constant reminder, constant interaction with the society. That's why it's different. The advertisement is still perceived very well even if people are talking about the same thing every day. And if it's an important advertisement, that will build certain attitude. And otherwise, this will be lost. So I think that this should be in demand by the society. It's not only about the government decision on which topic is important. Let's say for the local mayor, it's important to build a road, but for some other people or for the society, building a bridge is more important. Although this might be related issues, you still need to identify the priorities. So I think that the demand is the key. Also, a follow-up question. How do you think receiving information individually or in groups will affect our participation? There is a theory of participation by Stuart Hall, and he states that often, unconsciously, we participate in social context. So, what's your opinion on that? You know, when you're playing cards and you can choose which card you play, you can choose either one. So the same goes for questions. I don't really understand what you're asking about. So, let's say I watched some kind of a show, alone or with my friends. What do you think? How will this information that I received affect my activeness, level of my activeness or passiveness in discussions and participation? Okay, let me try to expand on that idea. Certainly, when you're with friends, this is social environment, social interaction, and that will affect you. You will judge, let's say, a singer by their voice if you have musical education, but other people will be just looking at what the person is wearing, and that will affect your discourse. You will already start talking about the fashion choice rather than the voice. So social environment has an effect. I'll give you a simple example. Look at the reviews, or soon there will be a Davos forum, and in Russian, there is a lot of content on business breakfasts, evening galas, and so on. But there is less content related to the main topics of the forum. What is actually this forum about? But somehow in Russian there is a lot of content on who came to business breakfasts, and you have to just read through the through the list of names, or you might know what the menu was, or who was drinking or not drinking during the gala, but you don't learn much about the event itself. And I think that it's a good example. If this is about steering the discussion into some direction that might not be of interest to you. For me, for instance, it would be more interesting to read about the topics being discussed, but not many people talk about it because you need to dig deeper, you need to verify the content, whereas for the gala, you just need a couple of pictures and that's it. So social environment indeed affects the way we perceive information.
I don't think there are any more questions in the audience. No, thank you. Thank you, Sergey. That was totally interesting, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to the next masterclass, which I think is pretty much ready right now. So do stay in your seats, and we will invite Yevgeny to the stage while he prepares for his masterclass.